Okay, so let's go around, and can you just introduce yourself and what you teach, like what grade level or what specific subject within music? Let's start with Crystal, and then Crystal, you get to pass the ball to the next person.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Crystal Pridmore, and I teach K through 6 general music, orchestral work based, and orchestra. Passing it to Marc.
I'm Marc. I teach K through 6 general music as well, and instead of orchestra, I teach band.
Hi, I'm Jon Seligman, also known as Jon by these guys, and I teach TK through 6 general music in an often Orff style, as well as after-school choir and during-school band.
And my name's Zoe. I was going to take it.
Passing to Zoe.
My name's Zoe. I teach general music, K through 6, and strings and choir. And I'm going to pass it on back to Victoria.
Okay, so when we left off in the spring, things were kind of wonky and everybody was teaching online. When we look ahead at the fall, what does it look like where you guys are in Chula Vista in Southern California? What's the plan? I will go first to Jon.
To me, okay. What's it looking like? Right now, we are still trying to determine that. It is still up in the air. It will be distance learning, so we will, at first, until things change, whatever that might look like, and I'm not sure exactly. But right now, yeah, and so how are we being told to teach online? And that's about it. That's all we know so far.
There are a certain number of minutes that California legislation has passed and that we're abiding by. And so off the top of my head, I think for kindergarten, it's 180 minutes. Now, I don't know if that's per day or per week. If I had to make a guess, it would be pretty, yeah. And then up to 6th grade is 200 something minutes or 230 minutes. So that's required. And then for our district personally, we use Teams as our platform. And so I imagine that that's going to be the route that we go, is what we need to be using Teams to communicate and to teach. Our MOU is still being bargained, so we're not quite sure what that looks like. We don't go back till the end of August. And so there's a little bit of wiggle room, but not a lot on the district and the union's bargaining table.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we know
going back at the end of August is weird for us because we're a year-round district. Normally, we would have already been in school for 2 weeks right now. So they delayed the start of the school year as late as possible, I think in hopes that, if anything changed, we could just go back face-to-face, but it's pretty apparent at this point that that's not a possibility. And Zoe, what were you going to say?
No, I was just agreeing. It's in Chula Vista, we have 46 elementary schools, and having if you think about a classroom of 30 kids and you're trying to find consensus, it's hard. And then you think of that on a larger scale with that many schools more than a classroom of schools. It's really difficult because people are coming from very different situations. So coming to consensus in a educational setting that works for everyone I think it's going to be ongoing.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Victoria, just for maybe listeners who might be listening who don't know us, we teach in an elementary only district. So we're the largest elementary district in California. And so when decisions are being made, it's always through the lens of the elementary student, not as high school or middle school. Because I know with high schoolers, you can do different things than you can with, a 5-year-old. So that's our perspective, and that's our lens of when we talk about distance learning and talk about what we are trying to figure out going back.
Right. Okay, so you have some direction from the district, which is we will be virtual. But what that looks like from teacher to teacher is up to you, it sounds like, or at least it is at this specific moment in time. So what I want to know, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we just haven't been told. I don't know if they're going to come down and say you have to do it this way. We know that because of the state mandate, a certain number of those hours every day have to be synchronous. We don't know what that means for us as BAPA teachers quite yet, and how much of that load from the classroom teacher we're teaching. So yeah, we just don't have a lot yet.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say that with the understanding that you are definitely online, let's say a plan for synchronous and let's say a plan for asynchronous. We'll just do like, maybe we'll do like 2 sentences. So if I'm told I have to do synchronous, this is what I want to do. If I'm told I have to do asynchronous, this is what I want to do. We'll just go very best, like hopes and wishes. We'll start with Marc.
Oh man, I was hoping that you wouldn't start with me. So I think synchronous, through the music setting, just because we have so many different levels of capability with our teachers in the district, I think it would be nice if we all stuck to a program similar to Quaver. I know that last year we were kind of piloting Quaver at a few schools. I attended their QuaverCon, which was just like an online platform or an online like PD, and there's some really good stuff. And Quaver, you're able to kind of to make it your own, but it's also there are lessons that are pre-done, and this is over 2 minutes. I apologize, or 2 sentences. I apologize.
That's okay.
So I think using that would be helpful. If it was to be asynchronous, my fear in that is that there would be looked upon on the extremes, where you have the teachers who do really great work and who do a lot of hours, and then you have the teachers who don't. And the people who maybe not want VAPA will focus on those teachers who don't, and the teachers who do, who make everyone else look bad. And so I think if we were to go back asynchronous, it could cause a lot more strife amongst the VAPA department and maybe the VAPA teachers, because no one wants to look bad, but also we love our students and we want to do as much as we possibly can. And with us all being at home, it is very difficult. Like Crystal has 2 boys at home. I have a 2-year-old at home. You know, our schedule is going to look a little different than Jon, who doesn't have any kids at home. No offense, Jon. But
I
like
do. They're 4 roommates.
Fair enough. Absolutely. So exactly. Sorry, Jon. You have 4 roommates, and so you are sharing Wi-Fi. And you're like, so there's just all these different circumstances that you can't really just be like, all right, well, good luck. Here you go. You know, without at least some form of expectation of what we need our teachers to be doing.
Right. Right. Marc, you can pass the ball.
I will throw it over to Zoe.
So I have been thinking about asynchronous and synchronous learning in kind of like the same sphere of how I want to deliver my lessons. So the big idea for me right now is teaching in a 1-room schoolhouse. I'm trying to imagine a family who has multiple children and many responsibilities and lessons that each kid has to do, and then music fits in there somewhere. So in terms of how it would be delivered, how do you say that? Synchronously?
Synchronously.
Synchronously?
It's all good. All these words that we have to learn now.
Yep.
I've been thinking about inviting students and families to join at any time. So like whatever I'm delivering would be accessible to the whole family. And then I've also trying to tease apart teaching in a 1-room schoolhouse, like what would work. I've been thinking about trying to do some more project-based learning, and so just like having that differentiation. So it's all one lesson, but just with more possibilities.
That sounds super exciting.
Yeah, still thinking about it. But Jon, what do you think? What are you thinking about?
Well, before we go on, I'd like to have this part cut off so I don't sound like a stupid idiot. Just to clarify, synchronous is like when the students are with you, versus asynchronous is when you kind of create material and they do it separately, or something entirely different. Okay.
No, that's exactly it. Like synchronously, you're teaching live, and asynchronously, you record it ahead of time.
Right. Okay.
Basically.
Cool.
Yeah.
So maybe
you will not be the first one to wonder, am I mixing those up?
Cool. All right, then keep that audio in. All right.
I mean, I probably did, John. No worries.
What am I thinking? I guess like you, Victoria, I've been kind of in denial. I've been focusing on last year's projects that I haven't given much time to focus on this coming year's projects. But I have a similar fear as Marc. If we take the asynchronous approach, in that it can create some big division in already a situation where, this happens, nationwide, where VAPA is always like in a big juggling situation. I don't want to create schisms in a program. But I love the VAPA program in Chula Vista. I wouldn't want to create any divisions there because of, as Marc mentioned, Crystal's situation is much different than mine, than Zoe's, than you, than Marc. Needless to say, asynchronous, I would just continue, I feel like, making the videos I've done, which I did back in the spring. But the problem also with asynchronous is engagement, or the idea of how do I know that they are responding back. One of our coworkers has often said she feels like she's just shooting in the dark whenever she sends out those videos, and it's true. Like I've done with something. Again, this is definitely overshooting the 2-sentence qualifier, so my apologies. But we use things like Flipgrid, and which is great if the kids were doing it. But like over at my art teacher, she teaches at 2 schools. At her other school, kids were doing it. At my school, no one did a Flipgrid. Not one. Sorry, one kid did. I lied. One kid. So, great job, Bryce. I appreciate you. But that all said, so the accountability is a big problem with the asynchronicity. I'm going to use that word. I don't think it's a real word, but I'm going to use it.
Crushed it.
That all said, as far as the synchronous approach, similar to Zoe, I've really percolated on these more project-based. I've really wanted to do something last year, which we didn't have the materials for, but looking into fully artist projects where kids can create sound effects or background music to like videos they've created. This would have to be for upper graders, maybe only, or maybe not. I'm not sure. I'm still percolating in my head. And also that would require another issue that we've hit is technology and making sure that everyone has equitable technology that the projects can be doable. And so it's a those are the things that are percolating in my mind. To you, Crystal.
I mean, already you can see, like, from the last 3 answers that these are all amazing teachers right here, right? And we all have a very different way of thinking about what we're going to do and how it works. And I mean, shooting in the dark is one metaphor for it. I was talking to another friend who talked about throwing pasta at the wall and see what sticks because we don't have any evidence. First of all, the fact that you're even looking on Eric to try to find it shows you're way smarter than any of us. So good for you. I've read some interesting studies coming out of like Hurricane Katrina that when kids fall behind in academics, they tend to stay behind, and that scares me. But at the other end, we have all of this homeschool data that kids who are not traditionally schooled, if they come from supportive homes and the parents are engaged, they're fine and they can catch up no problem. So I think we're going to keep seeing that divide. And so what I have been thinking about, Victoria, is a lot less about what am I going to do synchronously or asynchronously, and a lot more about what exactly do I do and why do I do it. And Crystal, Mrs. Pridmore, have to be so clear on that going into next year that it almost doesn't matter the how it happens. I need my why. And for me, as I'm thinking about what last spring was like, which it was a mess. I was a mess. I will be honest. I felt like a train wreck. Just trying to get my 2 elementary school age boys taken care of with all of the people in my house working from home because there's 5 adults who live in my house and really bad internet. And I have believed for a long time that self-care is not fluff and it's not luxury and it is absolutely not negotiable. And mental health is first. And so like we have to take care of our physical bodies and our mental well-being. And I've been teaching, this will be my 14th year in the classroom, and every single kid that's ever walked into the classroom comes in with that question first and foremost is, do you actually care about me? And do you love me? And that answer has to be a resounding yes. And if it is, then we can get somewhere. So what I'm thinking about is that is why I do what I do. And I've had one vehicle to get there. And so how do I build that relationship and express that care, which has to happen synchronously? And I have some ideas or maybe how to do it, but it's going to be a lot less ta and titi and a lot more I really care about you, and getting to know them and quizzing them about music that is already in their lives, that's important to them, and encouraging creation through a vehicle like Quaver. That's helpful. Maybe I'm trying to get ukuleles for every 3rd through 5th graders to send home so that they all have an instrument. It's an ambitious goal. I don't understand how, but I love it to happen because my kids don't have materials, which was another sticking point. You know, a lot of us teach in low-income schools, so they went home and had nothing. A lot of them didn't even have decent internet or devices. So, I mean, I don't have a good plan yet, but I do know that no matter what I end up doing with the students, I am going to be placing my well-being and my family's well-being first, because I can get nowhere and I can think, that has to be first before I get into the house.
Yeah, so when you take people who went into this profession because they are care-based people, and we say, here are hundreds of children suffering, and here's a problem that is impossible to solve, go for it. That will eat up your entire existence, right? Because there's not a solution to the big problems. But we can find solutions to how to make joyful musical experiences with kids that we care about, to the extent that, that works for our lifestyle. Yeah. So I love everything that you guys just said completely. Crystal, I think you wrapped a really beautiful bow on that. And it's a nice transition, because my next question was going to be, which you've already kind of answered, why did you choose that pathway, right? Or like, why are you considering this pathway of all the other things, right? So like, even if you know it's going to be video, you talked about, well, video could look like Flipgrid. It could look like YouTube videos. It could look like kids sending in their own stuff and I work on it and send it back to them, right? So my next question was going to be, why did you choose this pathway, and what do you ultimately want kids to get out of it, So I think I haven't called on Zoe first. I'll pass it to Zoe.
Got it. Okay. So I arrived at the point where I am today based on just reflecting a lot and trying to be really gentle with myself, because I have changed my mind many times over the past few months. But I had a chance to reflect not only on my own, but with some alumni from my hometown who have had an interest in anti-racist curriculum and bringing that to our hometown of La Cañada. And I kept coming back to this teacher that I had in the 4th grade who was doing anti-racist teaching kind of, she just flew below the radar. And she was beloved by students because we were doing just like really engaging projects. Like, she taught us how to knit. We made spears, just really fun things. And I bring her up because when I was in the 4th grade, we had September 11th, 2001. So it was, like another traumatic event on a very large scale. And I talked to a few of my classmates and a parent and my teacher in the last few weeks about that year and what we experienced together. And something that stuck with me was that a parent told me that a lot of the parents arrived in the office that day and just wanted to take their kid home. They're like, this is too scary. I don't want my kid in school today. And Mrs. Wish was in the office saying, why don't you come to class with your kid today? Because I think they should be around each other and we can process this together. And it was like, I didn't know that all that was happening, that she was inviting parents in. But to me, like that really stuck with me, because we have this opportunity to connect with families right now and offer a bit of healing. So and even if it's not like going super deep on you know, on an emotional level, it is like something that kids and parents can do together, or whoever's at home. So that's how I got to where I am right now. And I will pass it over to Crystal. Underhand pass.
Yeah, I love that, Zoe, and I think that that's so true. And I haven't taught through anything this scale, obviously, but I have come to schools after natural disasters, or even just thinking about going into schools after like the shooting at the synagogue in Poway that we had a few years ago in San Diego, or you know, that kind of trauma, and how important it is to hold space. Victoria, you had made mention of reading through Facebook groups with teachers and crying. And I think that the reason is we are grieving so much as a society, but as a profession. Nothing that we could have, you know, foreseen or done. Like, this is nobody's fault. There's nothing that any kind of striving we're trying to done to fix it or prevent it. So that's sad, you know, like this really big sad thing blew up everything that we were dreaming of and thought of. And so who's holding space for us to feel those feelings right now, and before we have those solutions? And also, who's holding space, like Zoe was kind of talking about, for the families, for parents who are feeling that way about their kids, and who's holding space for the kids. So I want to come up with lessons that care for that socio-emotional side of the kids. So whether it be through me, you know, finding the means to send an instrument home, or a little baggie full of music making stuff with the kids, or something, I want them creating, because I truly believe that creativity is the best vehicle we have. Like, artistic creation is the most powerful vehicle we have to creating integrated people who, you know, express their emotions. So that is my greatest hope for next year, is just encourage them to create, to share, and witness. Just be there to help them process it. I'll pass it to Jon.
So why did I get to this choice is the question. And I think part of it is that, like, I think subconsciously I fully agree with what Crystal's saying. I wouldn't say it unless like someone mentions it. Like, I'm someone who is very hard on myself. These three know this easily, but I'm extremely hard on myself. And it's important that I try at least start on something that I at least recognize that I'm decent at. Otherwise, if I go towards these theoretical things that may be good, but I suck wholeheartedly, not only is it going to create extra stress on me that I feel like I'm a failure as a teacher, which we all feel sometimes, a lot of times for some people, but like, at least if I could start on something familiar, I can then extend myself somewhere else from there. I could pivot if need be. But so that's why I felt that starting with YouTube videos was a good start. And it's also why I brought up the idea of Flipgrid. It's because of familiarity, but also music is meant to be communal and it's meant to be shared. It's meant to be not just something that's done in a vacuum, but extended with other people. And as we are all isolated, there needs to be some sort of way that we work and see and build off what other people do. And I don't know what the right answer is yet, but I do want some sort of way for kids to showcase their art and not just for their parents to see it. And also, like Zoe, like Crystal's mentioned, I've been thinking a lot on not just the how, but the what. The content is really important. And I've mentioned this in previous podcasts on Chaotic Harmony that 2018 coworker of mine passed away, a sixth grade teacher. It's like the heart of our school. Like, a lot of us suffered, and something that was really important that I felt was was for the kids to not, because what I witnessed was a lot of people were just moving on quickly. Like, that's life. It's time for us to move on. I remember talking to a staff member saying, yeah, it's sad, but it's time for us to get going. It's like, but no, we are still grieving here. And and like even more so for the kids. And I think it's important for the what for this school year to not just be, oh, let's sugar it up. Let's just sing what we sang before. But we need to also address what's going on. Both from there. I mean, I'm not going to label it all. 2020 is a hot mess, and there's lists of reasons why. And for us to think that kids don't see it is a huge lie. Kids know it. Kids know about COVID. Kids know about racial tensions. Kids know about Australia burning in January. It's like things have been happening, and so finding ways to address it so that it's not just something that a kid will go back to their room and just think about, but it's something that they can evoke through an artistic means. Yeah, and also one last thing, I am fully in agreement with Crystal on the notion of kids need to create. And I don't think it's just I sing, you sing, but kids need to create. I've always been a proponent of whenever someone is struggling with surface level mental illness, or actually even the lower end, but like it's creation is something that's super important, especially as we are in such a consumeristic society where we keep on just consuming other ideas. For us to actually say your piece through an artistic means is super important for kids. So that's going to influence my what as well. Mark?
Yeah, our education system nationally still cares more about test scores than actual feelings and SEL. I think that that's a fair statement to say. And I landed on what I like the Quaver thing because it meets, I feel, the needs to have data and hard data, because you can track login, you can track what students are doing. But it does offer the freedom for teachers to teach in a way that is conducive to their teaching style. So it allows kids to create. There are options on it. There's freedom to create SEL lessons, as Crystal was saying. And so I think that we are stronger, especially moving forward with how uncertain everything is and budgets and everything. We're stronger if we have this data. If we know that kids were logging into music class and we know we were able to see their work, we're able to see what they were able to do from home, but just imagine what they'll be able to do inside of a classroom once we get there, you know? And so that's how I ended up where I am, because similarly to everyone else, in spring, it was just kind of, I'm going to throw this video out there. So I have my YouTube channel, and my most viewed video, gonna flex right here, has like almost 1,200 views. My like least viewed video has like 50, you know? And it's just kind of that thing where if we have a system, if we have something that is our new norm for this season, we can move forward with trying to help our students not only learn the new norm, but it gives them that stability. It provides that well, I'm going to log on to music class and this is how we're going to do this today or this week. And it's not kind of, well, I'm going to go watch this video, and if I don't like the song that Mr. Keehmer sings, I'm going to turn it off and not be engaged. So it still holds them accountable for learning. And again, for teachers on our end, with all of our lives being crazy, especially with distance learning, how we do it at home, teachers who aren't able to, you know, create those individualized lessons for the students can use Quaver created ones, or we can even share lessons between teachers within the district. So if Crystal creates this amazing lesson that I'm like, I need my kids to do this, she can share that with me, and vice versa. So it kind of helps communally share workloads if we are going to create beyond what the Quaver curriculum is. Back to you, Victoria.
Yeah, I think that's good, Mark. Just to piggyback really quickly, the idea of like no one knowing your students but you. And that's why, back to what Crystal was saying, like that's why showing up and saying, hi, I'm here and I care about you. You can't get that from Quaver, right? Like that's why something like Quaver is a brilliant tool. And to go back to what you were saying, Marc, about systems, that's something that we can use to make systems for ourselves, right? So that we have these boundaries and self-care practices in place, but our students know that we are still there for them, right? I like that. I like that. What I am hearing from everything you guys have said is what's working is going to be connection. What's working is social and emotional learning, and making room for that for our students and making room for that with ourselves. I'm hearing you say that what's working is creativity, again, for our students and for us, and finding ways to express something new instead of, the way Crystal, you said it was like, it's not going to be about Ta and TT, right? It's about something much deeper than that, exactly. And then finding some sense of stability and community. All of these things are going to work this year. If the only question is like, well, should I do it on Flipgrid or YouTube? And it's like, well, that shouldn't be stressful, right? Like that shouldn't be the thing that concerns you. Right.
These are the things that work all the time.
Yes.
They always work. But what is your goal? Is your goal to increase test scores and make yourself look good because you have hard data? You know, people love numbers, and they love, as you have said on our podcast, Victoria, people love to make numbers mean things they don't mean. Or do we actually care about nurturing students? Do we care about people? Do we care about getting each other as a society through this and growing through this and taking lessons through this? If that's what we're worried about, I got ideas for days, you know. Am I going to be able to tie it up in a nice little neat package and say, look how their math scores went up? Mm-hmm. Probably not. But
I feel like this also allots for conversation to look at that national level and look at what do we value in education and why do we value it. Because I'm in complete agreement, Crystal, where there are things where like, why do we do this? It's just so their test scores go up. And it's not healthy, and so I am not the person to make all these, monumental changes to the system, but I think that we are missing I think that we're missing a chance if we don't talk about it. And if we don't discuss why. Why does the federal government get to dictate what my kid is learning at my school when that isn't what they need?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then to start the conversation, if we need to dig out some numbers, right? If we need to have, 7 conversations with kids and track the number of times they referenced how music was helping them, right? Or if we tracked how many times they described music in this way or whatever it is, like we can find numbers from these conversations and these experiences, but we don't have these experiences for the sake of the math scores. Because so now you have these math scores, but to what end, right? Excellent, you're good at math. Now what should we do? We still have to create, we still need to create humans who are empathetic and creative and can problem solve and work together and collaborate. Crystal, you have somewhere to be, is that true?
I do. I wish I didn't have to go.
Maybe, Crystal, before we jump out, can you tell us what would support look like for you? If you could ask the universe for support with your mission, what would that look like for you specifically? And then you can jump off and we'll pass the ball to everybody else.
If I could ask the universe for a gift in this season, it would be that everyone, administrators, lawmakers, parents, everyone, get on board and actually put the welfare of our children first and foremost. And not just the children, but the people, who are teaching them in the classroom. We need to stop having conversations about what schools do to meet physical needs and start thinking about how they're actually kind of the bedrock of our entire society and keep things going, because we nurture thinking, critically thinking human beings who go and vote later in life and make a difference in this world. And I'm a little fired up about that. So I would ask the universe for that just universal understanding of what it is we do as educators, what is actually in our hearts to give our kids, and just keep us safe. That's what we're asking. Keep us physically safe while we deliver that kind of nurturing for our kids.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Thanks, Crystal.
Love you guys. Yeah.
Love you.
All right. See you, Crystal.
Take care. See you later.
Crystal.
Wait, Crystal, pass the ball before you go.
Okay, Zoe, go.
Wasn't ready. So, universe, right? That's what I'm answering.
You just like what would support look like?
Oh, okay.
What would support look like?
Yes. I guess like open lines of communication and having the patience and just patience for everyone in the community. Yeah.
Open communication from who to who?
I see like all of the little relationships, I guess they're not little, but all of the relationships within that make the school function are just, they're so important right now. And like Marc was saying, and Jon and Crystal about teaching into a void and how strange that is. I think we are capable of communicating and being there for each other. I hope that we can rediscover that. Yeah. Okay, Jon, your turn.
All right. Dear universe. For support for music education or education, or for what are the parameters again?
Well, yeah, and I made this really broad on purpose, but I know that's frustrating to answer. You talked about your plan for how you're addressing this school year, or how you think you might address this school year. What would support look like for you as you carry out that plan?
Oof. I can think of multiple levels. From the microcosmic level, I recognize that everyone is hurting right now. I fully get it. And I fully get that everyone has a different perspective on what the problem is. From a microcosmic level, if we could have everyone extend their arms out and consider the needs of the other person, that would help a lot. And I say that for myself as well, that I also look to the needs of other people. Because if we keep on thinking about what my needs are over someone else's, then we are going to stifle this whole situation. We're gonna make everything the whole machine is just gonna fall apart, and that also goes into the realm of education as well. And so, even though people have differing views on how things should work or how things should look, what would help is just empathy, really having people be empathetic towards the other person, and even more so, as Crystal said in a fiery passion, for the kids. Like, I really think that people think so much about their own age demographic, or what's the market demographic. Right now it's the Zoomers, entering the college and also the workforce eventually. But this next generation is going to grow up. They're going to be messed up in the head. I was just going to say, I mean, we're affected as well, but we have set different kinds of guards, whatnot. There will be a lot of people, this generation is going to be affected very negatively, and we need to consider the young ones. I can get into a macrocosmic level, but that's a big.
You don't know if we're ready.
I don't know. Maybe episode 2 on this podcast. How about that?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marc. Boom.
Yeah, I'm a little sad that you took empathetic, because that was one of my words that I was thinking of, so I will change. But it wasn't the first. I think the first one is honesty. Honesty from teachers to administrators, from administrators to teachers, and then from teachers to families. I think that if we are not being honest, we're in a whole world of hurt. It saddens me to know, like, there are families who are hurting but who are too scared to tell the teacher, or there are teachers who are hurting but they're too scared to tell their admin. They're overwhelmed. They can't make this deadline. They got this going on. And then to attach to honesty is forgiveness. and it's being able to forgive someone who didn't meet your expectations and like truly forgive them for it and then move forward from that. And then to tie to forgiveness, I think it's listening. We don't listen nearly as much as we need to as a society. And I am in the mindset where I am totally fine if I disagree with you on how to do something. I'm not fine with if you're disrespectful with how we disagree. What I know this is a hot topic subject, but I am never going to be someone who posts or who makes fun of someone who I disagree with, or someone who says something wrong or something that might be construed as dumb. I don't think it's helpful, and I think that there are too many people who I see in leadership positions who do that, where people are learning like that's okay to do, and like, so this person does it so I can do it. It's like, no, the buck has to stop somewhere, and it's going to stop with me. Like, I might despise everything that you have to say, but I'm not going to be mean, I'm not going to be cruel, and I'm not going to belittle you as a human. And I think that if we are able to disagree well, then we can have change, we can move forward. And then one last thing, as it was coming to me, is we often teach our students to be risk takers, but as teachers, risk taking is often shunned upon. It's often, don't do that because you won't get this result, and this is a result that you need to get. So we need to be able to take risks. We need to be able to fail hard and have that support of, well, get back up, dust yourself off, and move forward. Gemma my daughter, she's at the point where she's running all over the place. She's almost 2. And my wife Brianna and I are teaching her, like, when she falls, she looks at us first to see if she's okay. And what we're teaching her is, all right, Gem, get up, dust yourself off, let's keep going. And unless it's like a severe fall, like she gets up, even if she has a little scrape on her knee, she'll dust off, and we keep walking. And I think that is something that we lose because people are worried about how they're being perceived, or they're worried about their status, and they're worried about all these other things, where they forget that the important thing is to be nurturing.
Yeah, and to keep the Gemma analogy going, like, I think when we fall, we still do look up and look in the faces of people around us and say, like, am I okay? Am I really hurt, or am I okay? And depending on the people you have in your life, those people can say, like, no, you're fine, you're good. Like, that looks like it hurt, let's keep going. That hurt, wow, that really hurt, let's keep going, Or you can surround yourself with people who will give you answers that aren't helpful and that don't encourage you to get up and keep going. And Marc, I think that's what you're talking about, just a frustration with the system, right? That when we have problems without solutions, one of the solutions is to fail. Like, failure, when we try something new, is a really good solution because we will fail doing something new because the old things aren't working, and they haven't worked before this. So.
If I could jump onto something you said, Victoria, that I liked a lot, is like, you're saying that looking up is something that we do, and it's a good thing, but to add on to that, there are people that don't have anyone to look up to. And I think it's important, going back to my other aspect of just empathy that I stole from Marc, that we need to be there for other people who do not have anyone else to look up to. And I think that's going to be super important. It's uncomfortable, especially since we have our own burdens as well, but if we as a society want to grow, we need to look for those who do not have other people to look up to. So
yeah, I love it. So Jon, will you tell us some about where people can find you guys, and is there anything that they can do to support you all very specifically? So do we have like a subscription? Do we have anything they can subscribe to? Do we have anything they could leave a review on? How could they support you, and where can they find you?
Well, firstly, like, as Victoria mentioned earlier, we are Chaotic Harmony. We are a podcast that talks about music education, specifically in the elementary level. And we talk about the joys and the struggles, as we just talked about right here, of being a teacher. And we're on break because this is summer break, but we'll be jump back in around September-ish, maybe. We'll figure that out. But you can always follow us on all the social media platforms at CH Classroom. That's for Twitter, for Instagram. YouTube, it's Chaotic. Do you guys remember?
Harmony Classroom.
Is it the long one? Chaotic
It's a
Harmony
long
Classroom?
one.
Yes.
Yes. And
Because
also,
YouTube doesn't play well.
so go on Twitter, go at YouTube, and tell them why you're doing this, and then they can figure it out. Also, what would really help us, first off, listen to the stuff. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So, and when you do, you can also send us an email at chaoticharmonyclassroom@gmail.com. We will definitely get back to you, and we'll definitely want to hear your thoughts. And please also, when you do listen to us, because you will, because you love us so much, leave us a review on iTunes, on Google Play, Spotify. I don't know if you have it, but if you can, once again, just at Spotify, say, hey, I like Chaotic Harmony Classroom. You can do that. And you can leave us a review that way, and that would be really helpful for not just optics, but also just so we can kind of gauge how we're doing. But also, we have individual platforms as well. Are we segueing to this, or do you want to go somewhere else?
Let's do it. Let's go.
All right, cool.
Shameless plug, John.
That's it. Like, whatever you have, this is your moment, John. So whatever you have to say, like, you step in that spotlight, you shine.
There we go. Even though we're Chaotic Harmony, we're also not just a conglomerate. We're individual people. So, as Jonathan Seligman, I have a Twitter handle, and also on Instagram at Mr. Seligman, MrSeligman, as well as YouTube. So if you want to see those lovely lessons as we talked about, or also I've been working a lot on virtual choir videos from last year's stuff, so you can see those virtual choirs. You can also see Zoe like hammering on the bass on the last one. So yeah,
It was really good.
it was solid. So yeah, at Mr. Seligman, and you can reach me there. Yes. Zoe, how about you?
Sure. You can follow me at Ms. Kumagai on Instagram and Twitter, and to see some of the things that I've been putting out for my school, you can check out my rounds at Rosebank Panther Music on YouTube. Mark, how can we follow you?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, all under Mr. Keehmer, Keehmer. And then you can find Crystal stuff on Twitter at FinnyVappa, on Instagram at Mrs. Pridmore. I imagine that there'll be show notes that people can look
Yeah, there will be.
I'm not going to try to spell it because I'll probably spell it wrong. And I think on YouTube at Crystal Pridmore, but don't quote me on that. Just type in
Check the
Pridmore
show
or
notes.
something like that. Yep.
Okay, you guys. Thanks so much for your time. You guys are, I won't get emotional here, but you guys are such a blessing to everybody. There's a reason people love your podcast so much. And there's a reason that people like me talk back to you guys in the podcast, because it feels like community. It feels like a really uplifting conversation, and one that I want to be a part of. So thank you guys so much for the work you do. It makes a difference every single time people listen to it.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thanks.